Space Coast. We are at our studio here in Melbourne, close to downtown Melbourne, and we are blessed today to have our congressional candidate for United States Congress, Sandy Kennedy. Who's running to replace Congressman Bill Posey, who earlier announced his retirement from office. Welcome to the studio, Sandy.
Thank you.
Are you excited?
I'm very excited to be here and tell everyone about my campaign. My name is Sandra D. Kennedy. You can find me online. I have a LinkedIn bio. I go by Sandy. I'm a native Floridian. I've been a lawyer for almost 30 years. I'm a construction lawyer, and I practice construction law. I help subcontractors get paid their contract balances when they've not been paid, and also defend them against construction defects and design defects. And I'm board certified in that for the past 17 years, which means that I met a higher standard of practice and my ethics are higher, my subject knowledge is better. I'm a native Floridian. I was born in Panama City, Florida at Tyndall Air Force Base.
Okay. Panhandle.
Yep. And I grew up in an Air Force family. Traveled as a child, but always came back to Florida, and I've lived in Florida for about 40 years, more than 40 years. Part of the time of my childhood was on a NATO Air Force base in southern Italy.
Oh, wow.
And various other Air Force bases.
Married, kids?
I am married. I have a 20-year-old son who will be turning 21 this year, and he's adorable. One of the loves of my life.
Okay. And what made you decide to take on this role to run for Congress?
Well, being a lawyer and having a political science degree, I've always had an interest in running for office. But I am a member of the working class. I had to have financial security. I've always supported myself for, most of my life. I started working when I was 16. And I did not have the luxury to stop work for a period of time to run for office. I do now because during the pandemic, I kind of joined the Great Resignation and recently decided, now's the time. There's a lot going on, that our rights are being eroded, people are hurting, finances are getting really hard. And I just think I don't like the trajectory of things, and I just decided, it's a tough district to run in, but I want to do it.
Things are getting very polarizing and divisive in politics, national politics and state politics. As a registered Democrat in Brevard County, which encompasses all of the congressional district that you're running for, how do you see yourself, number one, overcoming the registered voter difference, and number two, bringing the parties together, kind of reaching across those party lines to kind of get rid of some of that divisiveness? Well,
I'm glad you asked. Everybody asks, what do you think is the biggest interest of the people of District 8? And I honestly believe that this community has got a lot of very diverse interests. I know that a large number of us across the line, Republican, Democrats, Independents, are very concerned about abortion. This issue, taking away the rights to health care of such a huge segment of the population, is just untenable for large numbers of people. This brings us together. Democrats are the only ones who are offering this right now, and I believe I'm electable, and I will work very, very hard to ensure that we can codify abortion rights. It's very important because people didn't know. I really honestly believe that when they went down the path of abortion bans, they did not realize how they were going to affect people's health care. So people need to not just dig in and believe that they did it and now they're going to stick to it. They need to reverse course, back up, and recognize that we have to make sure that women live first, and that they're healthy, and that when they have a simple health issue, if it does require an abortion, that they're able to get it to protect not just their life at the moment right before they might die, but to protect their health long before they get there. So that's one thing, is this abortion is the 11 abortion right in the Florida Constitution is very important. Likewise, the legalizing marijuana amendment is very important for bringing people together. And I'm in favor of both of those amendments. I don't think marijuana is such a serious drug as it's been treated as being in the past. And we really need to just decriminalize it and allow people to possess it, even though I'm really not in favor of people doing more marijuana. I just don't want people being processed criminally because of it.
Right, so obviously I think the DEA recently came out, it was either the DEA or the FDA, about reclassifying marijuana as a lower scheduled drug. So you're for not necessarily the legalization, but the decriminalization. Is that correct?
No, I think you have to legalize it to decriminalize it.
Right.
So I am in favor of legalizing it.
Okay.
I'm just saying that I don't smoke pot. But I'm in favor of people being free and having the freedom to do something that is not as dangerous as it has been passed off as being. I can answer the rest of your question. You were asking, how would I overcome the large numbers of Republicans? What I want to is we have such a great diversity of interests. And Republicans, if you ask them, will say, guns are very important to them. Smaller government is important. States' rights. But I really ask, if you reach into your heart, think about it. Think about what is really important to you. You're interested in also in veterans, protecting veterans. You're concerned about Social Security, it being there. You put the money into it.
Right.
Most people don't have a huge amount of money in District. Social Security is still important for most of the people in District 8. Medicare is important. Healthcare is very important, and healthcare costs are through the roof. The only way you get all of these issues taken care of, and more issues taken care of, is through the one trying to have small government. Now, why are Republicans trying to have small government? Because Republicans have gone down a path of lowering taxes, lowering. It worked starting back in the 60s. This is why everybody was in love with John F. Kennedy. Lowered the higher... I don't know the answer to that. I'm working very hard to find out. There's so many Kennedys. Most of them had about a dozen to 25 children.
Oh, wow.
Each, and it's very hard to trace that family. It's a huge family. So, anyhow, in the past, we used to have higher tax rates. In the 50s, when a single person could support a family of 4, the upper tax rate on the very wealthiest of the wealthiest was 92%. And then Kennedy brought it down to 72%, and everybody was ecstatic. The economy got better. Yes, it did. Taxes were too high back then. But it's gone lower and lower and lower. And now the effective rate is somewhere in the 20s. And we have a progressive tax system where your tax dollars that mean so much at the bottom are taxed lower. And as you become a billionaire, your tax rate goes up. And that's why it must go up, because those dollars don't mean that much to those people. And that's why it must go up. When that is taxed appropriately, we can afford to take care of all the needs of government. Education. Everybody is interested in better education. Nobody wants their kids in bad schools. That can be done when we're taxing the highest level at an appropriate rate. Social Security would be more secure overnight if the contribution and say, if contributions would go above, say, 168,000, which is about where it is now, Social Security would be secure overnight. Roads, taking care of roads and bridges. There's a list in every single state of the number of roads and bridges close to collapse, and we've got a lot of them here in Florida. With more taxes from the upper echelon, which is not paying its fair share right now, we can afford to do all of these things that Republicans want done, that independents want done, and that Democrats want done. Things across the board for everybody, and pay down the national debt, because that's got to be done too. Just being financially responsible is important, and the national debt, to make sure we're not passing off a disaster to our children. But the higher taxes on the upper echelon has got to be done first and foremost.
Your answer without, yeah, I appreciate that. Back on to the what was the issue? I should have wrote it down. Oh, veterans. With the veterans, Brevard County has a very high population of veterans, retired military. We also have the Space Force base here. I'm still getting used to saying that instead of Patrick Air Force Base, Space Force Base. But what do you see yourself, as a representative here, providing to the veterans here at a federal level?
Well, that security and certainty of support that they need, triggering in so that we can fund to a significant extent what they need. It's only fair that we do this. The owner was paid at a very low rate, because I think or at least back then, they allow you to opt how you're going to get paid, whether you're going to get paid very little now so that as you get older you'll be paid more, but any way you look at it, they were supposed to be taken care of medically completely, and that is a big failure in a promise that really needs to be upheld to people that are putting themselves on the line to take care of us. So that's what I want to do, and to definitely be available to them. In canvassing and going around, I actually met a man who I was running for Congress. He's like, "You are going to win, and you're going to be my representative." And he was a veteran, and he was telling me about how hard it was to get health care and get his benefits, and sometimes he just asks and asks to help him.
As a veteran myself, a retired Army, I can tell you that the frustration and VA are synonymous. We definitely need somebody who can help get in there and try to get this program to be much more efficient than it is, because veterans definitely need the services. We talked about education briefly. One of the points that a lot of conservatives at the federal level are focusing on the abolishment of the Department of Education. What is your position on DOE and where it should be used?
I believe we need the Department of Education. Absolutely. I mean, this is another part of Republicans' plans to collapse government and drown it in a bathtub. We need government. We need good government. In order to be the best nation in the world that we are, we have to have government of a size big enough to take care of all the people. We just cannot pretend that life is going to be, that we're going to have a high standard of life if we don't have a reasonably sized government. Public education is very important. We don't want a situation where the great majority of kids going to school are learning next to nothing, so serfs for the oligarchy. That is not the nature of our government. This is capitalism. We're supposed to have a system where those who are most right now. Right now, we've got a system of the people are getting paid less and less and less, and the wealthier are making more and more, and those are soon going to become trillionaires. We're on a path that within our lifetime soon, we're going to see the world's first trillionaire. And it's all because of taxes. It's all because we're not taxing them enough. It just needs to get back, being conservative. I've heard it being defined as keeping things the way they are or reasons used to be. Well, we need to restore taxation to the way it used to be. Maybe not back in the 50s or the 60s, but somewhere back there was a good scheme of taxation that was allowing the people in the country to pay for what they needed to. And to get back to answering your question, the Department of Education is just very important, because if the great majority of the people are not getting a decent education, then we can't become that great nation doing great things.
I've always found it somewhat ironic when we hear people who are calling for smaller government, those people are usually running for office. Yeah. So
yes, because what the people running for office get out of smaller government, they are doing a favor for the people who have so much money. They're basically pandering to them. So they're looking for benefits, positions, fame, campaign donations. And that's why we need campaign finance reform.
Yeah, let's talk about campaign finance reform a little bit. Before we were talking on camera here, you were talking about the need for some of the campaign. What are your ideas about how we reform campaign finance?
Well, what I would like to do is write a bill, which as a lawyer I'm capable of doing, that includes election and unifying and standardizing election law across the states, not to take it away from the province of the states, but to at least unify it so that people feel that there's a greater sense of fairness. Everything is being done the same. Nobody's getting an unfair advantage. Everything's been analyzed by experts and by bipartisan committees, so that there's a consistent deadline and by when you need to have things done so that you can have your candidates on the ballot, so that this state won't person off the ballot and then this one say, well, they did it, now I'm going to do it, as Governor DeSantis did. Let's address all of that in the same bill that we address campaign finance, which is going to take away the power of big interests to dominate the political field. Now, this again is another area where everybody, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, can all come together. You want toxins out of your drinking water. You want clean air, clean water. We want a clean lagoon. We don't want antibiotics and hormones in our meat, which are making people sick, causing breast cancer, phosphates added to meat to plump it up, make it look a better color, adding saline, and then the phosphates and the saline both being so expensive that the federal government has to pay for it. All of these things, things that everybody wants, you're not going to get there with very small government, because you've got to have people, you've got to have enforcement, you've got to have fairness, you have to make sure it's fair. But to achieve all of this, we have to have campaign finance reform so that big pharma and big food, big ag cannot dominate the process.
Okay. Well, I mean, you seem to be very impassioned about a number of subjects, and I think that that's good to, because we have such a diverse county with people that have a lot of different, the same needs, as well, just as human beings living on the Space Coast. Everybody travels across the Indian River Lagoon. We live on the beach. People are worried about climate change. People are worried about hurricanes.
And to give another example, some people don't want to be on the street. Some people want to get off the street. Some people need a place to live. Some people want to avoid ending up on the street. And then other people don't want to be exposed to poverty, to see the desperation of poverty as you drive down the highway. see people sleeping in the bushes, which we do have in Brevard County. Everybody knows about it. Let's talk about it. Let's think about doing something about it. It takes tax dollars. It takes donations too, but tax dollars are certain to take care of people. And as they say, it's a lot easier to keep a person off the street than get them back into their street. And think about this too. If somebody, our wages have been depressed decade after decade after decade. There's been a greater divide between I mean the uber wealthy. I don't mean the average person working really hard and having a nice house with a 3-car garage. Not what I'm talking about. There's such a divide in wages that the lowest people with the lowest incomes cannot survive without supplementation from the federal government. Well, that is a subsidy to the wealthy, to the corporations, to pay for their employees. They need to take care of their own employees. So this whole thing about, just work more, don't be lazy, that'll keep you off the street. No, it's not sufficient. There's a lot more going on here. And I intend to do something about it.
We definitely are facing a new pandemic of affordable housing crisis, and we don't just mean low budget housing. We just mean being able to afford to live in this current economy, and a lot of it has to do with insurance rates and state issues. But what do you think is one of the driving causes that's driven the cost of living so high?
Well, right now, there are some companies that, everybody knows there's the Airbnb business, and just for lack of a better word, just to use that to describe all of them, I know there's a lot of other businesses where their corporations are owning businesses and renting them out for profit. And owning the houses and renting them out. And this is really driving up the price so that people can no longer afford them anymore. We don't want to have houses only for the wealthy, or houses only for the middle class, and then the lower class not be able to afford, because now corporations are trying to prize those homes. But that's what we have right now. Some corporations own thousands of homes, and we need to ban that practice. That needs to be adjusted. And so, it's been a while now. We had the economic crisis in around 2006, 2008, and that was caused by mortgages being securitized. Well, now the very homes are being securitized, and it's another rigged system that is going to result in a calamity, and we have to legislate away from things like this. This is exactly like the market cannot go this way, because the federal government then has to support the people. And tomorrow it's these people too, and sooner or later it catches the rest of us. We have to take action legislatively to stop houses from being securitized on Wall Street or being owned by mega corporations that own thousands of homes.
Well, Sandy, we definitely thank you for throwing your hat in the ring. It's always commendable when anyone puts themselves out there to run for office. People really don't understand how much of an undertaking it is. So we appreciate that. What's coming up for you on the campaign trail? Do you have any events coming up? Where can people find you?
You can find me on my website at sandykennedyforcongress.com.
Okay.
And I have a Facebook page. It's also called Sandy Kennedy for Congress, but the separate words.
Gotcha.
Follow me there, because it'll help get my message out to everyone. The more people I have actually following message everyone. So if you heard something that you're interested in today, and you can also go to my website and see the rest of my issues. 12 major categories, large drop downs, lots of detail, lots of innovation, lots of ideas.
Right.
If you see what you like, go there and then follow my campaign.
All Okay. Anything else you want to add before we?
I think that pretty much covers it. And as far as events coming up, I'm going to be footing it out house to house and talking to people and just going places where people are so that I can meet people and people can talk to me and tell me what's important to them, and I can let them know about my issues.
I always tell candidates the best way to find out what voters want is to go ask them. You know,
That's what I intend to do.
So, well, we appreciate you being here, and we offer this opportunity to any candidate that's running for office to come out here and be heard and tell your positions to our audience. So thank you again, Sandy, for taking the time.